midnight screams.
My housemates keep reminding me to take my medication. I wish I didn't. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, and it was driving me up the wall. Mom had ignored my calls all day, then had the audacity to text me, claiming I'd never tried to reach her. I had a mountain of missed calls to prove otherwise, each one more frantic. Like now, for instance, the familiar bzzz in my jeans pocket nearly pushed me over the edge as I reached our front door. I was all set to give Mom a piece of my mind when a voice caught me off guard. Annabeth. Mrs. Whaley, our next-door neighbor, was peeking at me through the crack in our fence with a gentle smile. Mrs. Whaley was well into her 80s, but sweet as she was, Mrs. Whaley had a habit of mixing up our names. Today, I was apparently Annie, though I looked nothing like my roommate. I was a looming brunette. She was a tiny blur of gold. I figured, even with bad eyes, it was clear who was who. Apparently not. The old woman tilted her head, wrinkled eyes wide with curiosity. Her smile faded. "Didn't you say you were moving out?" Instead of correcting her, I smiled sweetly. "No, we're pretty happy here, Mrs. Whaley." She shook her head. "Annabeth, you said you were moving. You told me yourself." No. I did the smiling and nodding thing. "We're staying here. I think you're confused." Before she could respond, I yanked the door open and made my escape. The house was unusually warm. The summer heat was brutal, but at least we had air conditioning, and the pros outweighed the cons of this ancient house. Maybe 100 years old, maybe 1,000. But cozy. Falling apart? Absolutely. But also cheap, and it had charm. A strange mix of modern decor and vintage quirks. We had 2 bathrooms, and the tub was practically a swimming pool. Case in point, not many people were welcomed into their living room by a grand Victorian-era fireplace. It was more of a hole in the wall that should probably be condemned, but it was fun to show off to visitors. "This is where we keep the bodies," I used to tell the newbies we brought around for drinks. Apparently, the place used to be a psychiatric hospital, which only upped the macabre appeal. I shrugged off my jacket. The hallway light was off, so I flicked it back on, dumping my backpack on the shoe rack, which was emptier than usual. Maybe Annie was finally getting rid of her babies. "Anyone alive?" "Nope," a familiar voice bounced back. "Harry." My phone buzzed. I pulled it out and glanced at the screen. Sure enough, a missed call, just now, from Mom. Beneath it, a text. "Mika, please call me." I ignored her for once and strode into our lounge, the epitome of comfort. The windows were wide open, fresh summer air filtering through the blinds. The room was a mess. A coffee table cluttered with books and papers, a ratty Craigslist couch awkwardly sitting in front of the TV. The carpet was out of fashion decades ago, and the pattern rug in front of the fireplace had to be haunted. But it was home. I collapsed into battered leather. The lump sitting next to me was still in his pajamas, thick red hair hanging in unblinking eyes. Harry Sr. was my recluse of a housemate who never went to class. Smart, pretentious, cute. 3 words I'd never say to his face. Harry was a mad genius, and that was his downfall. He was Dexter without the laboratory, and slightly more unhinged. He even had the evil laugh. He'd be up at 3 a.m. mixing concoctions that could land him on a watch list while the rest of us were asleep. When I first met him, his icebreaker was, "Yeah, I'm trying to make the elixir of life. Totally normal." I knew Harry in 2 modes. When he had something to fix, he became hyper-fixated and fully obsessed. Then he'd eventually burn out and resort to caveman brain. Rinse and repeat. Despite the sticky summer heat, Harry was curled up with his knees to his chest, playing a video game in his very own Harry-shaped dent in the couch. Trying to remove Harry from his dent meant certain death. When my phone buzzed violently on my knee, I ignored it. It buzzed again. I stuffed it between my legs. Harry shot me the side-eye, focused on the final boss. He was doing it again. Trying not to smile, and ultimately failing, the corners of his mouth curving into a smirk. He tried to shove me off when I made myself comfy, using his knees as a leg rest. I chose to ignore him, instead following his character as he jumped over a pile of corpses, dove onto a horse, and charged toward a looming, leviathanish creature. "So, what's going on?" he asked casually. I could tell by his expression he didn't care. Harry was our neurodivergent couch potato. When things happened, he either didn't care, didn't notice, or both. Still, at least he was making an effort. "Mom keeps calling me," I said, relaxing into familiar couch creases. Harry snorted. "So, answer her." "Well, yeah, but she keeps putting the phone down on me. She's driving me insane." I jumped up, restless. I was thirsty, so I dragged myself into the kitchen. When I opened the refrigerator to grab a beer, it was warm, sitting on the top shelf. Weird, the refrigerator was definitely on. I made coffee, but the milk was spoiled. So, no beans for me then. I slammed the fridge. Shut. "Did you guys break the refrigerator?" I laughed, tossing Harry a beer that he easily caught with one hand. He shot me a Dorito-stained grin. "If it's broken, it wasn't me," which meant it was him. I left Harry to slay the final boss. I needed to shower and change into something that wasn't glued to my skin. I was starting to regret wearing a sweater when it was teetering on 90 degrees outside. I felt my phone vibrate again on the way upstairs as I awkwardly jumped over Annie, who was sitting on the bottom step with her head nestled in her arms. I gave her a pat on the head. Annie was hungover. I could tell from her groan when I nudged her. Plus, she was still wearing her outfit from the night before, jeans and a cropped tee, her golden curls spilling onto her knees. Fun fact, when I first met Annabeth Mara in my freshman year of college, I thought she was a bitch. She gave off, like, "do not talk to me" vibes. Annie had a "do not talk to me" smile, so the whole time we were talking, I was convinced she hated me. I realized I was wrong when Annabeth grabbed my face with her manicure, turned me towards her, lips split into a smile, and said, "I feel like we're going to be besties." Fast forward 5 years, and we were in our 20s. Annabeth was my non-biological sister, with a heart bigger than Jupiter and 0 filters. Annie's biggest flaw was her borderline alcohol addiction. I loved her, but we were planning an intervention. She also had a mouth like a sailor, and simmering anger issues, especially when she didn't get her own way. "I'm fine," she mumbled into her lap. "I'm gonna go to sleep. Like, right here." I nudged her with my foot. "On the stairs?" "It's comfy." Annie paused, her voice collapsing into an audible gulp. "Also, if I look up, I think I'm going to throw up." "I just cleaned the floor," Harry snapped from the lounge. I could tell by his tone he was losing to the final boss slightly, strained, teetering on a yell. It wouldn't be long before he started attempting to bite his controller, swiftly followed by begging. "Don't move her, Mika," he warned. "If she upchucks, you're cleaning." "Listen to Dad," Annie murmured into her knees. Harry didn't have a dad bone in him. The only reason he had been christened the dad of the house was due to his ability to cook without poisoning us. Annie rested her head against the wall, still curled into herself, and I hopped past her. Harry was looking after her in his own way. The puke bucket wedged between her legs was enough. Keeping my distance, I checked my phone again. It was Mom, unsurprisingly. 5 missed calls. "Mika, please call me." The text lit up my screen. "Sweetie, you can't ignore me." I started up the stairs, sending a voice note instead. "Hey, Mom, it's me." As I made my way up, I passed Jasper. Roommate number 3 glanced up from his phone mischievously. Jasper LaCroix, the rich kid with a soul. His hair was the usual tousled mess, falling over amused eyes that were the perfect shade of coffee grounds. His outfit was brow-raising, a suit jacket over one of Annie's old BTS shirts and jeans. His skin was glowing, a result of his vigorous self-care routine applied every single morning without fail. Jasper had to be meeting with his parents, otherwise he'd still be in his robe. As well as being an insufferable socialite, he was nosy as hell. He paused to listen, a curious smile tugging at his lips. I waved him off, and he laughed. The voice message was getting too long. Mom had a withering attention span. I reached the top of the stairs. Look, I don't know why you keep calling me and then ignoring my calls. I don't know if there's something wrong with your phone, or I could sense Jasper breathing down my neck. I ignored him. I keep telling you to use a different app. Texts are buggy. Just use Facebook. In the corner of my eye, Jasper was mimicking me, complete with exaggerated hand gestures. When I turned and shook my fist at him in mock warning, he threw up his hands with a grin, mouthing, "Okay, you win." Anyway, I shot him a look, and his smile widened. Jasper LaCroix had a shameless fascination with me and my mother butting heads and inserting himself into my family drama. Maybe he was a LaCroix after all. I gestured for him to leave, not so subtly threatening his life with a glare. But he didn't back down, pretending not to understand me with manic hand gestures. "I've got to go change," I said, distracted by his flailing arms. "Call me when you get this, okay?" I ended the voice note and stuffed my phone in my pocket. Jasper tilted his head, leaning against the wall with his arms folded. I often wondered if his obsession stemmed from not having a mother of his own, just a sociopathic father. There was a lot of darkness bubbling beneath the polished facade of the LaCroix family. Affairs, secret children, and the never-ending feud over who would inherit the company. Jasper was the heir, after all. He, however, had zero interest. Like I said, he was a rarity, a rich kid with a soul. A materialist, yes. His closet was an ego embarrassment. The eldest LaCroix held a simmering distaste for his own bloodline, evident in his tonal shift when he was around them. Jasper made it very clear he had no intention of inheriting old money. I attempted to sidestep him to get past, but he was a 6-foot-something roadblock with an impeccable jawline. He stood, brow raised, smug as usual as he peered down at me, arms crossed. "Your mom?" I rolled my eyes. "My mom. Emancipation!" Annie groaned from the bottom step. Jasper grinned. "What she said! Emancipation! The answer to all of our problems!" He winked, stepping back to let me through. I was surprised he wasn't demanding I solve a riddle. I darted past him before he could ruffle my hair, but he didn't, already, descending down the stairs, back to scrolling through his phone. "You need to take your meds, dude," he said. "You haven't taken them in days." He was right. I had been putting off taking them. Shooing Jasper back downstairs, I made a quick stop in the bathroom, or what I like to call our swimming pool. The tub took up half the room, a porcelain rectangle resembling a Roman bath. Our shower was awkwardly wedged into a corner, where my eye caught mold above the shower head. I tried calling Mom one more time as I rifled through the pill cabinet. I grabbed my usual anti-allergy meds and the headache pills that always made me nauseous. I took them quickly, but another bottle caught my eye, unopened, with my name scrawled in doctor. Adams's spidery loops. I didn't remember being prescribed them. Still, I took 2, as instructed, and washed them down with tap water. I checked my phone sitting on the edge of the faucet. I was sure I'd called Mom, but the call must have cut off. I tried again, and to my surprise, she picked up on the first ring. I slumped down, perching myself on the edge of the bathtub. "Finally," I said, leaning back and crossing my legs. The metallic taste of the pills was creeping back up my throat and sticking to my tongue. "Mom, you really need a new Mika!" she cried, and something in her voice jolted my thoughts. Mom was crying, but Mom never cried. "Mika, where the hell are you? We're at the funeral." Oh God, you promised you'd come. Something ice-cold slithered down my spine. It was suddenly too cold. I shivered, but that creeping feeling didn't leave, skittering under my skin. A sharp odor crept into my nose, a combination of mold and my own body odor. When I tipped my head back, the mold had spread across the ceiling. The tub was full of cobwebs. I stumbled back downstairs. Everything was duller, a thick, hazy mist over my eyes. "Jasper." I spoke to the empty hallway, to silence stretching all the way, downstairs. But he was gone. Annie too, no longer lounged on the bottom step. The stink of sour milk followed me, bleeding into my nose and throat. It was stark and wrong, hanging thick and heavy in the air. The living room was dark, windows shut, curtains clumsily drawn. In the kitchen, filthy dishes filled the sink. Old takeout cartons and crushed soda cans cluttered the counters. The couch was empty, and the TV was off. 2 beer cans sat on the coffee table. One was still full, unopened. "Mika!" Mom cried, her voice fading into the sound of ocean waves. I didn't realize I had been just staring, listening to the gentle crash of water against the shore. It sounded just like when we went to the beach. I was sitting in the sand, head tilted back, watching the 4 of us waist deep in the shallows. Reality hit sharp and cruel, like a needle in my spine. I was drowning, being pulled down deeper and deeper, with no anchor to hold me, plunging beneath the glistening surface into nothing, oblivion. I felt myself hit the floor. All of the breath sucked from my lungs, my body weightless, my fingernails clawing at my hair and down my face. My phone was no longer in my hands, but I could still hear Mom screaming at me. "Mika, where are you? Mika, baby, remember? We're burying them today." I ended the call before she could finish. Calmly, I climbed the stairs and stepped into the bathroom. I knelt by the toilet, slid 2 fingers down my throat, and gagged until the pills came back up, thick, bitter, and clinging to my throat in a sour paste. Then I sank to my knees, my back against the wall, shut my eyes, and waited. After a while, a voice finally cut through the silence and my ragged breaths. "Why are you passed out on our bathroom floor?" I let my eyes flicker open. It was too bright. The lights hurt my eyes. Jasper was looming over me, awkwardly crouched to meet my gaze, head inclined. He slowly reached out and prodded me in the cheek. "Mika, I'm not peeing with you sitting right there." I stood, my legs unsteady, throat raw and aching. "Mika?" Jasper's voice called after me, louder this time, but I kept walking. My heart was aching. The tub was clean again. The mold spreading across the ceiling was gone. I left the bathroom, pulling myself toward the light. Comfort. Downstairs, I could hear the TV, and Harry, his frustration with the game steadily growing. Annie sat slumped on the bottom step, her head buried between her knees, groaning. I felt myself sink onto the top stair, the world violently lurching. Jasper dropped down beside me. "Do you want to talk?" He shuffled closer, his voice surprisingly soft, his head flopping onto my shoulder. Jasper LaCroix was warm. "So, what did your mom say?" In the back of my mind, my phone was buzzing in my pocket. I ignored it. "Nothing," I said. "Just mom stuff," he hummed. "Oh yeah, mom stuff is the worst." We sat in peaceful silence for a while. I liked the feeling of his chin nestled against my shoulder, his hair prickling my skin. Jasper felt comfortable. Right. I thought he was asleep until his voice cut through the heavy nothing that had begun to envelop me. "Do you remember when you came to the hospital?" I did. The memory hit me hard. I burst through the sliding doors, skin slick with sweat, my heart jammed high in my throat. I slammed my hands on the welcome desk, gasping for air. "Hi, my friends came in about half an hour ago." I managed to choke out. The nurse nodded. "Name?" I opened my mouth to reply, when a voice cut me off. "Relax. Harry's fine." I spun around and spotted a familiar face at the vending machine. Jasper LaCroix stood with one hand on his hip, the other jabbing furiously at the Coke button. The boy was still wearing his robe, a jacket clumsily thrown over the top. He wasn't smiling. His face was scrunched in irritation, bottom lip jutting out. He kept trying to feed $1 into the slot, only for the machine to spit it back out. When a soda can finally came through the flap at the bottom, he ducked, snatching it up. "It's just a minor injury," he said, tossing me a can. Jasper cracked his open, taking a long sip. "Come on, I'll take you to him." Harry's room was down several staircases, along a winding corridor, and straight past the children's ward. Hospitals gave me the creeps. Jasper, though, seemed right at home. I kept my distance as we walked him, sipping his Coke and me, having already drained mine, desperately searching for a trash can. I sure as hell hadn't forgotten our awkward drunken kiss the night before. His slight smirk told me everything I needed to know. Oh, he remembered it all right. So, what did he do? I asked, trying to steer the conversation away from last night. Jasper led me through another set of sliding doors and snorted into his drink. Sliced his finger off, trying to cut potatoes. He shot me a grin. Jasper truly loved the macabre. He wasn't even trying to hide his excitement. You should have seen it. Blood everywhere. Harry was screaming. Annie almost fainted, and I was running around trying to clean it all up. We reached Harry's room. Through the glass window, I glimpsed my roommate sitting up in bed. Jasper sighed, pushing open the door. Here he is, the crybaby doofus himself. I had to agree with Jasper on something. My crybaby doofus roommate was propped up on pillows, legs crossed, dressed in those paper hospital scrubs, the kind that show your ass. Harry Sr. had a hefty bandage wrapped around his hand. He kept glancing down at it, like the rest of his fingers were going to magically disappear. Annie was slumped in the plastic visitor's chair, head tipped back, golden hair pinned into a ponytail. It looked like she'd dozed off. Mika. Harry straightened up, tossing me a sheepish smile that I didn't return. I got the call that my housemate was in the hospital, ran nearly 5 blocks, and almost had a heart attack. All for the loss of a finger. You didn't have to come, he said. They're discharging me soon. His gaze found Jasper. Where's my soda? Jasper shrugged with a grin. I gave it to the person who didn't slice off their index. Asshole. Glimpsing a trash can, I tossed my Coke and slid into the seat next to Annie. Jasper dropped down beside me. You're an idiot, I told Harry, though I was barely holding back a laugh. How did you even manage that? He was rushing, Annie grumbled beside me, her eyes still shut. The dumbass wanted to get back to his game, so he was speed running, peeling potatoes. She sighed, dropping her head into her lap. I'm living in a house full of lit-or-row clowns. Harry, to my surprise, didn't object. He groaned, burying himself under the covers. You guys can leave now. Nope. Jasper propped his legs up on the chair, folding his arms. We're staying purely to shame you. I'll call security, Harry grumbled from underneath the pillows. Oh, you wish. I carried you to the hospital, remember? Harry tunneled further under the covers. Pure mole behavior. Because I was rapidly losing blood. Children, Annie muttered with an eye roll. She turned to me with a hopeful smile, and something twisted in my gut. I knew exactly what she was going to say. Have you decided about moving yet? She asked. We've found the cutest house. Jasper and I are viewing it next week. The atmosphere in the room noticeably dulled when I took too long to answer. It's almost $2,000 a month, I said, my hands growing clammy. I can't afford it. I straightened up. I like where we're living right now. We don't have to move. Annie's voice rose into a quiet shriek. Wait, are you fucking serious? Right now? There's mold everywhere. My bedroom is full of asbestos, and if we're being honest with ourselves, we should be dead. Jasper surprised me with a snort next to me. Mika, that house isn't safe anymore. The tub is crumbling, Harry mumbled from under the blankets. We keep getting sick from the mold, and the owner told us the damper on the fireplace is breaking. I can't afford it, I said, well aware of my burning cheeks. Moving out, I mean. I can pay for you, Jasper said, and something in my chest lurched. Of course he could pay for me. I'll pay your rent. He nudged me playfully with his elbow. Relax. I don't expect you to pay it back. You're my friend, Mika. He jumped up with a grin. I'm just happy we're finally going. I'm fine, I said. I tried to smile, but my heart was breaking. It was getting harder to compose myself. You don't have to pay for me. I'll stay, and you guys can go. Annie stood up, her eyes pinched around the edges. That's a health risk, she said, her tone hardening. We can literally move out right now. So, why are you being so stubborn? I bit back, the words blistering on my tongue. Because you're privileged. I wanted to scream it, but I knew I'd regret every syllable. They had no idea. Living on a different planet while I pretended I belonged. Sure, I could splurge on endless bottomless brunches and fake a life of luxury, but the truth was cruel. I wasn't like them. You picked the priciest luxurious house because price tags don't exist for you. Annie, you wanted a swimming pool, an ensuite, 3 bathrooms, and none of it matters. The money is nothing to you, and if you actually cared, you'd have found a place we all loved, one I could afford. The words twisted and pricked in my throat, trying to crawl into my mouth. I swallowed them bitterly, my chest burning. But the words followed me all the way back home once Harry was discharged. Weeks later, Annie had signed the new lease. She was already packing. Boxes littered our living room. "Mika!" She greeted me when I came through the door, jumping over a mountain of her shoes she was piling into a box. "Do you want to help me pack? I still need to pack up your room," she called after me. I made dinner, each syllable sliding under my tongue. I don't want to move. We're fine here. This is our home. Jasper cornered me in the kitchen, while Harry and Annie were in the lounge. "I really don't mind paying for you, you know," he said casually, reaching into the refrigerator and grabbing a beer. When I tried to ignore him, he gently grasped my wrist, squeezing my hand. "Mika," he murmured, "you don't have to be embarrassed. We're your friends, and we care about you. Just let me pay the rent." I felt stiff and wrong. It was a mistake, I thought dizzily, the words suffocating my mouth as his eyes followed me. Warm coffee grounds I felt like I was drowning in every time I caught his gaze. Kissing you was a mistake. Kissing the heir of a psychopath was a mistake. Kissing the man I wanted more than anything was a fucking mistake. I swallowed it down, but it just came back up in a sour, watery paste. "Mika." His voice softened. I shivered when his hand found my wrist, creeping down my arm, settling at my waist. His smile was warm. He didn't need to say it. We both knew what he was thinking, and I was terrified of it. Still, I let him kiss me, softly and tenderly, gently pressing me against the refrigerator. The kiss was warm. It felt right, his fingers cupping my cheek, turning me toward him. I waited for it. Jasper Lacroix was already set to marry a socialite whose name I didn't even know. The wedding was arranged for the summer, just after his 22nd birthday, when he was expected to take over his father's company. I found out through a brief phone call with his father. His son was taken, he said, and whatever thing I had with Jasper was to cease immediately. Jasper knew this, but instead of telling me the truth, his lips curved into a smirk. His breath found my ear, warm and heavy, and then exploded into a childish giggle. "Can I tell you a secret?" he murmured, pressing his face into my shoulder. He was leaning on me, the weight of his body nearly sending me off balance. "Dad doesn't want a fucking heir," Jasper whispered. A shiver crept down my spine. His voice twisted, effortlessly bleeding into an eerie imitation of his father. "It's all for show. Dad wants to stay top dog." "So," I whispered, "he wasn't the only one keeping secrets." I had my own bombshell, but it could wait. "So," he murmured into my shoulder, "you've got nothing to worry about. I'll cut all ties with my family, and we move into a new place far away from them." He paused. "It'll be a new start, for all of us." I pulled away, my stomach lurching. "I said I don't want to move." Jasper pursed his lips and folded his arms. Annie was right. He grabbed a beer and headed for the door. "You are being stubborn." He rolled his eyes, lingering in the doorway. "You're moving, Mika. I already paid your deposit. If we have to drag you to our new home, we will." His voice turned sing-song as he danced back down the hallway. "You know we will." Pinpricks. His words jabbed into my spine like tiny needles. "What?" I said, my voice catching before it rose into a yell. My cheeks flushed hot. Tears stung my eyes. "You already paid for me?" I trailed after him through the kitchen and up the stairs. "When I told you not to?" Bang! A sudden deafening thud splintered my thoughts. I froze, mouth open, breath caught in my throat. I couldn't scream, could only watch my roommate's body fall back, plunging down the stairs. His head hit each step with a sickening thud, once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, with the 5th sending him catapulting backward, his arms flailing, until he crumpled at the bottom. For a heartbeat, maybe more, I couldn't move. Then reality struck. I blinked, my mouth full of cotton. Jasper? I dropped to my knees, rolling him onto his back. My hands came away wet, warm, slick with blood. His eyes were still open, unfocused. Blood trickled down his temple. He was still warm. Jasper. I said his name like he was still breathing, like he wasn't limp and wrong, tangled in my arms. I didn't realize I was sobbing until the silence crashed over me like a wave. Annie? I shrieked, her name ripping from my mouth in an animalistic cry. Wait here, okay? I whispered, cupping Jasper's face in my hands. He didn't move, his head lolling. Wait here. My breath caught when more blood came away, soaking my fingers and palms. Wait, please, just don't move, all right? I stood, and my legs buckled. I hit the floor hard, couldn't move. Tried to crawl toward the lounge, but my limbs were heavy and wrong and useless. My eyes fluttered. Something was wrong. I coughed, choked, rolled onto my side. Slammed my sleeve over my mouth. There was something in the air. I forced myself to my knees, grabbed Jasper's ankles, and began dragging him toward the front door. There was no air, no oxygen, nothing for me to breathe. I opened the door, sucked in gasps of air, and pulled him outside, then turned back for Annie and Harry. Harry was curled on the floor, surrounded by shards of broken glass. Annie lay crumpled in the hallway. I screamed for help, dropped beside them, shaking them. Wake up! I shook them violently, screaming, until Mrs. Whaley gently pulled me back. But they didn't move. They were so still, so cold. They were all dead on arrival. I was sitting next to Jasper, my hand squeezed in his when they called it. His lips were blue under a plastic mask, eyes half open. Time of death, 8:53 p.m. Cause, blunt force trauma to the head, 21-year-old male. Their voices mangled together in my head. They didn't make sense. I still held his hand, even when it fell limp. I still wrapped my arms around him, like he'd sit up and pull me closer. Investigators said it was due to the damper on the fireplace. It broke, and all the oxygen had been sucked from the air. Something like that. I wasn't really listening. The therapist prescribed me pills so I'd stop feeling sad, but I didn't want to take them. I wanted to stay with them. It's not your fault, you know. Jasper's voice pulled me back to the present, the two of us sitting on the top stair. Annie was gone from the bottom step. Harry's yells had faded from the lounge. Jasper stretched his legs, letting out a sigh. I know you blame yourself. That's why you're not letting us go. He rolled his eyes, shooting me a grin. You're stubborn, Mika, he nudged me. Always have been, but I didn't want him to go. If I stayed like this forever, sitting on the top stair of our home, I could hold on to them just a little longer. Okay, but that's not healthy, Jasper murmured. I know this sounds cliché or whatever, but you've got to move on, dude. Your mom is worried about you, and rightfully so. Why do you keep coming here? When I didn't respond, he sighed. Take your pills. Jasper stood up. He didn't face me. I could see he was already crying, or trying not to cry, and ultimately failing. You're going to close your eyes, and I'm going to go, all right? His voice was steady. No tearful goodbye, no regrets, because it wasn't your fault. It wasn't my fault. Something in the air shifted, almost like the temperature was rising. My phone buzzed again, and I looked down at it. I glanced up, and Jasper was gone. Mom? My voice broke when I finally answered. Mika. Mom's voice was a sob. Oh, God, where are you? Sweetie, it was a beautiful service. I wish you could have seen it. I slowly got to my feet, making my way downstairs. Yeah, Mom, I said. I wish I could have seen it too. The words caught on my tongue when I noticed it. So subtle, faded, and yet there, in plain sight. I crouched on the bottom step, peering at the smear of red on the wall. The world jerked suddenly, and I was standing on the top of the stairs. Jasper was standing in front of me, his eyes wide. "Just let me pay for you," he said. "I promise you won't have to pay it back." "I'm not accepting 50 kelvins," I whispered. He tilted his head, lips curving. "Why?" Jasper rolled his eyes. "It's pocket change," he sighed. "I already paid the deposit for you." Annie finalized the lease. Shame slammed into me, ice-cold waves threatening to send me to my knees. "You already paid for me," I managed to choke out. "When I told you not to?" Jasper shrugged. "Well, yeah, like I said, it's nothing. Pocket change." He grinned, and it was that smile that set something off inside me. I shoved him, not hard enough to throw him down the stairs. Just a push, sending him slightly off balance. "You're an asshole," I spat. His lip curled. He was a LaCroix, after all. "Relax." "Geez, Milka, it's like you want to be a victim. We're your friends. We just want to help you, you know? This house is going to kill us." His eyes widened, frantic. Suddenly, when he realized what he'd said, "Fuck," he ran both hands through his hair. "I didn't mean it like that." I saw myself lash out, arms flying. But more than that, I saw red. Bright, scalding red that blurred the edges of my vision. He dodged, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent cry. "Mika, what are you doing?" I grabbed him. My hands clamped around his wrists, and I saw his eyes, wide and brown and terrified, and I shoved hard. He didn't get a chance to cry out, his expression crumpling, eyes flying open. I watched his body tumble down the stairs, limbs flailing, catapulting down each step, before landing with a sickening bang. I stood frozen, chest heaving, heart pounding against my ribs. Annie appeared at the bottom, a frenzy of tangled gold. She was carrying a box for her shoes. It slipped out of her hands. "Jasper!" Annie shrieked, falling to her knees. Her hands fumbled across his neck, his chest, then flew to her mouth. Her eyes met mine. It's okay," she whispered when I didn't move. Harry, call an ambulance." Annie scrambled up the stairs, her arms reaching for me. They were warm, comforting. She held me close, tears soaking into my shoulder. "Mika, it's okay," she said, her voice splintering. "Jasper's going to be okay. It was an accident." Her lips pressed to my ear, breath shuddering. "You're okay." I nodded, slowly, dizzily. I was okay, I thought. I was okay. My head was spinning, but I saw Jasper's blood pooling on the floor. I saw his body twisted in tangled knots. "No." I shoved Annie back. She didn't resist, like she already knew. Instead, she clung on to me. And then I grabbed her, all of her, wrapping my arms around my best friend, and hurled her tiny body down the stairs. That's when I saw Harry in the doorway. His eyes wild, his mouth open in a silent cry. "Harry." I stumbled toward him, but my apologies tasted sour. "I'm sorry," I said. But was I? He didn't scream, striding into the lounge and grabbing his phone. "I'm calling an ambulance," Harry whispered, voice breaking, tears sliding down his cheeks. He dialed with shaking fingers. "I need an ambulance for my friends." He broke down, but the phone screen was black. I saw red again, bright red, invasive red, painful red. In 2 steps, I took the empty glass from the table and smashed it over his head. Harry hit the floor without a sound. "I'm sorry," I choked out. I dragged his body into the hallway, then lit the fireplace and shut the flue. I waited for the air to thin, for my breaths to become labored. When my vision started to blur, I pulled them. Jasper, Annie, Harry, outside, one by one, laying them out on the patio. Jasper was still breathing. His gaze trailed after me, lazy, eyes flickering, as I collapsed beside him on the lawn. I was choking, and then his eyes finally fluttered. Once I knew he was dead, I fumbled for my phone with shaking hands. I dialed and held it to my ear. "Mr. LaCroix," I whispered, choking on thin, poisoned air. "I've done a bad thing," I whispered, crawling over to Jasper's body. "Please help me." "Mika?" Mom's voice brought me back to the present once more. "Sweetie, are you at the house? I'll come and get you, baby." "No." My voice was choked and wrong. I scrolled through the notifications lighting up my screen. All of them were from PayPal. "You have received $500 from Simon LaCroix. You have received $100 from Simon LaCroix. You have received $700 from Simon LaCroix. You bitch." I glanced up, and there he was, sitting with his knees to his chest, dried blood on his temple and under his nose. His head was cocked, eyes narrowed, lips curled in a smile that wasn't quite a smile, more of an ironic snarl. His gaze followed my finger through every payment his father had sent. Jasper LaCroix wasn't a hallucination this time. He wasn't the man who told me it wasn't my fault. The ghost I imagined, the pathetic apparition who held me, told me everything was okay. He snorted, eyes dark, and turned away from my phone. But I could feel his anger, like a wave crashing over me. Not a hallucination, because Jasper LaCroix would never fucking tell me that. He would never tell me it wasn't my fault. If it was. Annie was back, sitting on the bottom step, blonde curls nestled in her arms. Harry was perched on the middle step, legs stretched out, arms folded, head tipped back like he owned the silence. The lights flickered and then went out, leaving 3 figures carved into the darkness. I wasn't hallucinating my friends anymore. I was seeing them for who they really were, the reality of them bleeding through the gaps. Who I had tried to suppress, tried to run away from, and they were pissed.